This is John Paulamy of the Actionable Intelligence Alert. Today is Saturday, December 8th, 2018, and this is the weekly market update. Okay, guys, first on the agenda is the recent OPEC production cut deal that was announced earlier this week, or late in the week. Real quick, the way I understand the deal is that OPEC, led by the Saudis, have agreed to an 800,000 barrel per day cut in production, and the non-OPEC countries are also getting in on this, led by Russia. They will cut 400,000 barrels per day. That's going to be a total of 1.2 million barrels per day in production cuts, and this is going to be in response to the oversupply that currently exists in the market due to the Iran sanctions debacle and the Trump double cross that happened that we talked about last week. I'm not going to get into that again, but suffice to say that it's not in the interest of the Saudis or the Russians or the rest of the members that are producing to have oil at $50 a barrel. So I'm actually quite impressed about how quickly this was done. There was a lot of things in the news. There's obviously some infighting and some just heated discussions, I'm sure, but in the end, the cuts were made, and now we'll see if they stick to them. I think from what I've read or what I understand, the cut in production is more than the market expected, and we did see a big rally in the oil price. I think what was not reported was the Canadian province of Alberta had announced a big cut in production. They're forcing the producers to dial back production just because of the price of the Canadian blends of crude have really been blown out. And guys that have followed me and are in on the CCX trade know that the price discrepancy between West Texas Intermediate and Western Canadian Select is, or at one point reached almost $50 a barrel, I believe. So the Canadian authorities there in that province are dictating that they want production cut back by 325,000 barrels a day beginning 1/1/19. So you're adding that also to this OPEC cut. You also have seen the rig count start dropping in the Permian Basin with these low oil prices. So I think that the oil is really a very political commodity, and we've seen that over the last few months. And in the last videos, we've talked about that, specific to the Iran double cross by the Trump administration and how they double crossed the OPEC. I don't think that's going to happen again. If you trick me once, shame on me. Trick me twice, or trick me once, shame on you. Trick me twice, shame on me. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, the bottom line is these oil producers would like to see the oil price somewhere in the $70 to $80 a barrel range, closer to the higher part of the range. That gets them the cash flows they need to do what they need to do in their economies. It's really in no one's interest to see oil prices down where they are now. And of course, it was exacerbated by some hedge funds blowing up and some traders blowing up, having to liquidate crude futures and go and cover natural gas shorts. There's plenty of information out there about that. That exacerbated this move. And then also we have a narrative it's just a lot of negative sentiment towards the oil market and crude market right now. So we'll see what this does over the next few weeks and months. If the economies in the world continue to slow down, that will be a check on demand. But as I will show later in this, on the next slide, I'm not convinced that oil demand is decreasing as much as everybody thinks it is. Nevertheless, we are where we are, and I think the ultimate takeaway from this, from my perspective, or the perspective of the people that subscribe to my newsletter, I'm a big bull on oil service stocks, specifically the offshore sector. And this recent oil price volatility that we have has really knocked the socks off a lot of these stocks that I have in the portfolio. Nevertheless, we are not investing enough money long term in finding new oil. Oil demand is not decreasing, contrary to what the New York Times seems to think. And emerging markets and frontier markets are going to drive that growth as the world continues to industrialize, modernize, and urbanize. Requires more energy, and transportation fuels is oil. Not going to have everybody in India driving around in a Model 3 Tesla at $60,000 or $70,000. Not going to happen. Well, anytime soon at least. So I think that this continued volatility causes people to be hesitant. When I say people, I'm talking about oil company executives and decision makers. It makes them hesitant to commit to multi-billion-dollar, 5 and 10-year time frame projects. And this is going to have the effect of exacerbating what I already think, or I've articulated in the past, of what I think is going to happen, which is an oil price shock in the near future. When I say the near future, the next several years. So I think that if these cuts take effect and they're held and people play nice, we could see the oil price creep up through the first half of 2019 back up to the $70 range. That would, I think, be sufficient to start stimulating decision-making and capital expenditures. But at some point, we are going to be in a situation where the call on oil producers is going to be exceeded by demand, and prices are going to go into a spike. Simply are not investing the hundreds of billions of dollars per year required and necessary to increase the reserves and production to meet demand. Going into this whole thing, I read an article in the New York Times. They were talking about, well, this is an indication, what we're seeing about oil demand slowing and the transition to renewable energy and electric vehicles and all this other nonsense. I mean, it's like people really don't know how to do math and like how many cars are produced a year. What are the real trends in transportation in the emerging markets? When we talked about it the other day, I mean, air travel in India and China is exploding. If you look at the amount of orders for airplanes, short haul, even internal inside both those countries, I mean, it's just exploding now. You kind of look at how you're able to jump on a plane and go visit your relatives for Thanksgiving for, $250 or $300 round trip on Southwest. Well, the same thing's happening for, 2 billion other people. So I think what I'm showing here got off the Twitter, some accounts I follow there, but this is the oil imports for, on the left, China, going back to 2006. Obviously, you can see no decrease in oil imports over time. Yes, there's short-term ups and downs. You can even look at 2008 during the Great Financial Crisis, 2007 to 2008. You actually saw growth in demand and imports. So I suspect that will continue regardless of what happens in the short term. All my thinking, folks, is long term. So if somebody asks me what's going to happen in the next month or 3 months or year, I really don't know. I can't predict with any certainty, but I know what's going to happen long term because I know human nature and the desire of these people to achieve and enjoy the lifestyle that we enjoy in the West. The chart on the right obviously is India. Well, not obviously, but it is India, and it's oil imports. They're significantly lagging behind China, and I don't think people are really paying attention too much to India. India is now on the cusp of doing internally what China did in the mid-90s up through, the end of the 2000s, which is going this huge infrastructure build-out, electrification of their rural areas, paving of roads, and you're seeing a swelling of the middle class in India. That will lead to more, like I said, traveling. I did post an article, I think, or link to an article about how air travel internal in India is exploding. And also, these are the oil imports. So the idea or the view that oil demand is decreasing is simply not true. We're over 100 million barrels a day. I mean, it's striking that we even say that, this world economy consumes 100 million barrels a day of oil every day. And again, it's just the amount of investment and work that's required to maintain that has been lacking over the last several years. And these this volatility in oil prices, as I said before, is not helping the situation. It's going to exacerbate it and set us up for a tremendous upswing in oil prices at some point. I've been getting a lot of emails and inquiries about Uranium Royalty Corp. I wrote an article about it, and all I did was really pull the CEDAR documents off the internet and just basically transpose them into an article. It gets a lot of hits. There's not a lot of information on this entity, this investment vehicle. I mean, there's some big players involved here. Scott Melby, who's an executive at UEC, our friend Marin Katusa, and all the rest of the people, investment type people, Rick Rule. These people are all in this vehicle. It's been discussed, several times. I've heard it discussed by Michael Alkin and other people on different podcasts. One of my clandestine, ubiquitous informants, i.e. listeners, readers, you guys are really helpful because you help me catch stuff that I miss, but sent me this news from last week that UEC had closed a royalty deal with URC on 12/6. There's a press release on their website. You can go read it. I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But basically, this second bullet point is basically just typed right off their site. UEC sold a 1% net smelter royalty for uranium on UEC's hard rock conventional projects, and it lists them. I think these are second and third tier projects. I'm not that familiar with these projects. They are hard rock conventional mining projects. They're not the ISR model, the in situ recovery model, which is UEC's bread and butter in Texas. Nevertheless, I think that they're trying to fill out the portfolio of URC before they bring it public, which I have heard is going to be sometime in the first part of 2019. For consideration of these royalty properties, UEC received 12 million shares of URC. I thought it was interesting. I didn't know this, but this is an interesting point. UEC now owns 34% of URC. So I thought that was interesting. Somebody sent me an email and asked if this news and the recent news about the extension of debt, principal payments, the extension to 2022, changed my view on UEC. I'm going to be honest with you. I have mixed emotions about UEC. Like I said before, the recent behavior of the management team didn't impress me. How they communicated the recent offering that they did a couple months ago didn't impress me. But I do think they have some smart people there. Amir Anadi is a good promoter. He knows what he's doing. And they do have, really experienced executives. Scott Melby is probably one of the top executives in the industry. I'm going to be very curious. I wouldn't get my hopes up too high on this Uranium Royalty Corp. We'll have to see what it looks like when it comes out. I mean, you can look at it takes time to put these royalties together, and are they good royalties? What are the properties they have the royalties on? I mean, are they just issuing shares and just buying up every royalty? Or are they premium? Are they actually things that are going to generate revenue because they're actually going to get produced? I mean, people have this. I kind of get a little bit nervous because I hear people talking about, well, I'm going to buy this certain, XYZ uranium junior, and I'm thinking to myself, this thing is never going to go into production, at least not in this uranium cycle. So I'm really going to be interested to see what the royalty package looks like, what the properties are, what the terms are, and what this thing is actually going to be worth. So continue to follow it, and I appreciate the network that I've built and you guys sending me stuff. So this is something I missed. I'm busy doing other things. I'm not constantly scanning every website looking for information. But we have enough people now listening to this weekly videos, and people that are interested in this subject. Feel free to communicate to me even in the comments section of the videos or directly as you do. And I read every email, and I try to respond to most of them. So I know there's a lot of interest around Uranium Royalty Corp. I'm kind of really curious about it too. We'll just have to wait and see what happens when the offering circular comes out. We'll be able to know more. One thing I'm going to get into now, and I'm hesitant to do these type of things, but this actually did strike a chord with me. I've been following this guy on Twitter named Rodney Smith Jr., and he's this African-American guy. that basically during the summer and spring he was going around as a, I don't know, he just wanted to go around and raise awareness and around service to the other people, other humans. And what he did was he went around to each state and he tried to find disabled people, vets, old people, whatever, and mow their lawn for them. And he did it for free. And he started an organization where he tried to encourage kids to do that in their local areas. And he's kind of got a cool little thing, you know. If you get on his organization, you know, if you mow 2 lawns, if you're a kid, you get a white T-shirt, and if you get 5, it's like kind of like karate. You move up in the colors, you know, like red. If you mow 5 lawns or 10 lawns, I don't know the sequence, but something like that. And to encourage people to, you know, reach out to these other people that are, you know, not as fortunate as us. If you're, you know, your life's going well, and you know somebody that's old or doesn't have any family, or a disabled vet, or somebody, you know, that doesn't have the ability to get their lawn cut, or maybe doesn't have the money to hire someone, you know, to reach out and do them a favor. You know, spend a half hour, an hour cutting somebody's lawn for them. It actually means a lot to them, and it really impressed me because I, you know, as I get older, things that were important to me when I was younger are not as important, and these things it's just struck a chord with me. Well, Mr. Smith now has got a new thing. He's going around during this holiday season. He's trying to hit all 50 states. He's got about 25 under his belt now, but he's trying to hook up with at least 2 homeless people in each state, and you know, try to bring them some Christmas cheer, like, you know, get them some small gifts or some blankets or jackets or whatever, and kind of give them a little bit of some of that Christmas. Now, I'm going to say something right now. You know, you talk about homeless people, you look at them, we look past them, you know, you feel uncomfortable when you pull up to a highway off ramp and you're stuck at a red light. There's some dirty, grubby guy there standing there with a sign wanting you to give him money. I get it. I also get the fact that a lot of homeless people have made bad choices in their life. They've decided to use drugs and alcohol. Some of them are mentally ill. A lot of them are mentally ill. A lot of them are, you know, just victims. Some of them are victims of circumstance, have made poor decisions in their life. That doesn't mean, I think, that we just turn our backs on people. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a do-gooder. I'm not a bleeding heart. But I do believe that when you are fortunate and you're warm and comfortable and safe in your home with your family, it kind of is almost give a little bit of thought to somebody that's on the street, you know, in the middle of winter and has no family, no one cares about him. People go out of their way to walk over them or around him. You know, one of the things that struck me, why I'm bringing this up, and I was reluctant to do that because, you know, people are always getting hit up around the holidays. You know, you walk in the store, you got Salvation Army, you got everybody wanting to give him money. But I like what Rodney's doing, and I don't know if he's a grifter. I don't know if he's making any money off. He doesn't appear to be. He seems to be genuine. I've been following him for a long time. I threw him a couple bones because, you know, like I said, when everything's going right in your life, you know, there are people out there, even though they've made bad choices, they're still human beings. And if you can, you know, just get somebody a bus ticket back to their family, or get them a prepaid cell phone so they can reach out and talk to their family, or a blanket to make them a little bit warmer when they're laying on the street and it's 16 degrees, I think we're capable of doing that. So I wanted to throw this out there. You don't have to do it. I'm not asking you to do it. It's just something that is important to me that I like. I like what this guy's doing, and I just wanted to share this with you. So if you're inclined, check out his Twitter feed. It's kind of interesting. He's jamming, going state to state. He's in Illinois right now. I mean, he drives through the day and night and tries to, you know, find these people, and, you know, people try to help him out, and I think it's worthwhile. I mean, he comes off as kind of a little bit of a goofball, but he's got a little Santa suit on and stuff, and takes a picture of, you know, where he crosses the state line of the signs and stuff. But I mean, it's a feel-good thing, and if nothing else, if you can like it, if you are somebody that has some access to the media, he should get some media attention, and people should, you know, hear about what this guy's doing. I remember one time, like I said about the homeless people, I remember one time I was in downtown Cincinnati, and this is when I was quite a bit younger and cocky. I was very cocky, and I had a view towards these people. I would look down on them, and this bum walked up to me and said, "Hey, man, can you give me $2?" And I was like, "Hey, I work for my money. You can work too. I mean, I don't know anything about this guy." And I said, "Why don't you get out and give me 10 push-ups, and I'll give you $2." I mean, the guy got mad. We almost got in a fight. I was going to a meeting downtown. And, I was in business attire. I didn't really want to roll around in the cigarette butts and brake dust fighting with this guy. But I remember that, and you know, people are reluctant to help the homeless because they think that they're going to just go buy some wine or drugs, and it's not necessarily the case every time. So anyway, one thing I wanted to share was something my grandfather shared with me. He had a little poem, but I think that we think we have problems sometimes, and sometimes we have to keep some perspective. I think especially around this holiday time, especially if things are going well for us in our personal life. He used to say this: "I had the blues because I had no shoes, until upon the street I met a man with no feet." So, like I said, I don't typically like to do this kind of stuff, hit people up, but it's kind of touched a chord with me. So if you're so inclined, take a look at it. I appreciate the support. Channel continues to grow. People continue to follow me on Twitter. I hope that I'm putting out decent information, good information for you guys. I enjoy doing this, and I really appreciate the feedback. Like I said, don't feel, don't, you should send me emails if you have questions. I try to respond in the comments when people ask questions. I'm just one man with an opinion. I'm not saying I'm a guru. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I make mistakes. I mean, I really got caught out too, like the Saudis did on this oil thing. Let's be honest. I mean, I didn't see this coming, and I got double clutched also. So that's, we have to admit when we make mistakes. So appreciate the following. Like I said, hit the like button, support me. That's the best way to do it. Take a subscription to Actionable Intelligence, or support me on Patreon. Those are other ways to support me in the channel. And I appreciate all the people that are subscribers and are supporting me on Patreon. So we'll talk to you next week, guys. Thanks a lot.